Beat Lamar. Beat Lamar.
Save the best speaker for last, young man by the name of Kevin Kookogey. Kevin lives in Williamson County, former chair of the Williamson County Republican Party, but also one of the 4 people that testified in Congress about the IRS abuses. And he did us proud. You may have seen him on CNN and Fox and the other shows, but he's very articulate, very expressive, and very passionate. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to put your hands together for Mr. Kevin Kookogey. Is that okay?
I can't believe you said I'm young. How young do I look? I've got 6 kids. I'm not that young. Thank you for that very kind introduction. And it is absolutely wonderful to see everybody here today. I love these t-shirts. It was great seeing it driving down the road coming in. I gave some of you the old thumbs up so you knew that I wasn't the other side. 19th century Scottish poet Charles Mackay said that he who is mingled in the fray of duty that the brave endure must have foes. If he has none, small is the work that he has done. My name is Kevin Kookogey, and I am president and founder of Linchpins of Liberty, an American leadership development enterprise. Thank you. Our motto is to challenge the imagination of the rising generation. You may have seen me on TV over the past couple of months. Unfortunately, that was not reality TV. It was bona fide reality. And its consequences for all of us are sobering. The nature and resolution of that matter, however, much like our political concerns in Tennessee, are at their core a moral issue. So I think it warrants a discussion of that IRS matter to put my remarks in context today. For almost 31 months now, the IRS has unlawfully delayed my application for tax-exempt status. In fact, they've obstructed it as well. They have asked me to identify the names of the students that I mentor, some of whom are minors. They have asked me to give the locations where I do these teaching. They've asked me for my political view on virtually every issue of the day. But like its ideological parent, the IRS has enslaved generations of Americans, conditioning our rights on how we choose to exercise them. Like telling me I can ride the bus provided I sit in the back, apparently I can get my tax-exempt status for so long as I do not dissent against the present administration. Well, like its ideological parent, the IRS must be abolished. For to condition and to enslave us for our political and religious beliefs is every bit as much of a moral outrage as to enslave someone for the color of his skin. And we won't be deterred by the likes of Congressman McDermott, who some of you may have seen actually suggested that I may have lied before Congress simply because I was not under oath. Perhaps he was projecting, because I don't make a distinction between whether or not I'm under oath. I tell the truth all the time. And to others, like Elijah Cummings and many in the political class who suggest that the IRS scandal is overblown or that it's over altogether, I would remind him that our rights come from God, not from them. And if they fail to defend our God-given rights, others will be raised up to replace them. Men and women who will defend liberty and justice for all, not just the politically connected and the powerful. Because when the state transgresses its legitimate limits and inserts itself into our fundamental rights, and our most fundamental of rights, which was conscience and free speech, we have a duty, even should it cost us our very lives, to oppose such a usurpation of power, which is a violation not only of our Constitution, but of human nature itself. So why am I here today? The IRS scandal is an event which is indelible, not only for my life, but the timing and nature of which was beyond my wildest imagination, and certainly beyond any plans that I could have made. Prior to May 10th, 2013, and that is the day you may recall when Lois Lerner tried to orchestrate a Friday afternoon apology, thinking by Monday morning the news cycle would be gone. Prior to that time, I believed that my status with the IRS wouldn't be resolved until Lamar Alexander, maybe that's a slip of the tongue, until Obama was out of office. Freudian slip. Yet overnight, and without warning, I was sucked into this constitutional crisis, and I believe the resolution of that matter will require a political courage and a public courage in a measure or a degree to which we've not seen in these times. For me, it's also come at great personal cost, because on June 5th, 2013, the day after I testified before Congress, I actually lost 75% of my business when I was notified by a client of 14 years that they were uncomfortable and uneasy with my very public expression of my political views. So my world has indeed changed. But this whole affair has cemented in me the conviction that when we speak truth without regard to its consequences for ourselves, it resonates with people far and wide all across the country because they're waiting for someone to give voice to their concerns. When we finished the hearing in D.C., I turned on my telephone and I had 200 email messages of encouragement from all over the country and from Poland and China. This is altogether inspiring, but it's daunting as well. It gives me a sense of freedom and danger, but something from which I cannot now ever shrink back. It's as if God has pushed me off the cliff and said, "Fly, I have sown your wings and prepared you for the conflict which you must face." Conflict. There's one of those uncomfortable words. It's actually a reality we often seek to avoid in order to keep the peace. After all, don't people of goodwill seek peace? But peace at the expense of truth is actually an illusion, because we cannot have real and lasting peace unless there is a commitment to reconciliation, which itself is not possible without a commitment to honest debate. Superficial smoothing over of conflict only exacerbates it and leads to greater crisis and magnified conflict later. Let me get a break. By all accounts, Lamar Alexander has created substantial conflict with his constituents in Tennessee, and he has shown an unwillingness to entertain honest debate. Now, you've heard the entire list of, or not even the entire list, of how this giant of the political establishment has weakened our securities and trampled our liberties, all well dressed in Republican clothes. Yet he's tried to smooth this over with superficial measures, like fishing. Now, as G.K. Chesterton said, Lamar may change the place where he is going, and in this case, maybe that's to a fishing hole somewhere, but he cannot alter the place from which he has come. The senator's record is beset with an unmistakable description of where he has come, and we know him. Is he unaware how this little fishing expedition has only exacerbated the real problems? And does he really not understand what a magnificent crisis he has created, not only in dividing the Republican Party, but about the very existence of our country based on 744, his amnesty bill? In fact, the Senate itself has strayed so far from its origins as that great deliberative body intended as a force to protect individual liberty and preserve American sovereignty. Save for a few statesmen like Senators Cruz, Lee, and Paul, most of our Senate is comprised of mediocre men and women who define victory by shutting off debate, urging and pushing and urging legislative measures, drowning out opponents, trivializing legitimate consent, and seeking to embarrass, shame, or to blackmail those who would dissent. This kind of behavior by the political class actually weakens and corrupts the very social institutions that are intended to preserve our culture. It expands the government beyond its limit and squeezes out those little platoons of family, individual associations, and the church. When the government seeks to become the answer to everything, the government seeks to become God, and it demands a loyalty that is reserved to God alone. The only correction for this abuse of power is resistance by those from whom the government derives its just authority. It is our duty. John Winthrop. John Winthrop captured, he was the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He captured the essence of representative government in a speech before the General Court in 1645 when he said, and I quote, "We account him a good servant who breaks not his covenant." Sorry, I don't have a podium here. The covenant between you and your representatives is the oath of office. If he fails in faithfulness, by which his oath he is bound unto, he must answer for it. Lamar Alexander has failed in faithfulness to his oath, and he must answer for it. Yet, we must expect a vigorous response from the establishment. After all, do we not threaten their power? I would argue that the nature of the conflict before us is akin to that fight waged by William Wilberforce, because he was fighting against entrenched interests who were vested in maintaining the slave trade, and like them, we are making moral claims, and in that there is high cost. John Wesley expressed well the high cost of defending moral principle when he advised Wilberforce to expect all the opposition which can be made by men who are not encumbered by honor, conscience, nor humanity, who will rush on through every possible means to secure their great goddess, interest. Neither money nor 1,000 arguments will be spared in raising every possible objection against us. This will be a battle for the ages. If we lose, we shall do so with the knowledge of having fought a good and noble fight, and there is honor in that. But if we win, and I believe we can win, amen, shall we not have done lasting damage to that power structure which has run roughshod over the liberties and securities of Tennesseans for decades? And shall we not preserve for a little longer American sovereignty, which is that best guarantee of our liberties? Either way, you can be sure that we will have something to say about Lamar Alexander's return to the Senate. As a matter of fact, I expect that we will cast a decisive influence on its outcome. Thank you.